Welcome back, Nick Lenz. Comic Corner Classics/Non-Classics. This is episode number 1006 and my 900 double shot. What am I going to review with my 900 double shot? How about two Spider-Man trades, and both of them epic collections? Look how big these books are. Basically, these are volumes 18 and 19. Yep. Here's 18 Venom and 19 Assassination Nation. Let's first start with 18, which covers issues 295, 310, and number 22, Web of Spider-Man number 33, and Peter Parker's Protective Spider-Man number 133. This starts off with a three-parted Life Mad Ward. I'm not going to have my full thoughts on this particular story because I've already covered this particular story via another review. Look it up. It's Spider-Man Life Mad Ward. It contains this three-parter plus its follow-up in the 90s. Yep. It's done by Ann Nocenti of all people. Yes, she's the one who writes this story. Yep. There are minor contributions to the Spider-Man franchise. Yep. And then starting with, I think it's 296. I think that's when... Yes, I think that's when a new writer takes them aboard. Yeah, this is done by Dave Michelini, who is a damn good writer. Yeah. This one, 296, this is just a standalone issue featuring Dr. Octopus and himself from Hallucination. Oh, by the way, is Life Mad Work reference of this? No, it's pretty much forgotten about. It's just basically ignored by the writers that come right after it. Damage Lee does pretty much most of the issues published in this trade. He writes mostly almost everything in here. With Tom DeFalco doing the annual with Steve Ditko. Yeah, and the next couple issues... Well, basically this issue and 297, it's all about Dr. Octopus, with Alex Vaughn basically doing the artwork. Yep. But then 898, 899, we have basically artwork. This is basically just our Todd McFarlane's work as the artist for this book, which basically what this book and the next book basically contains pretty much this entire run of the book. He starts with this very issue right here, which has his character Chance. If you don't know who Chance is, he is a minor Spider-Man villain who doesn't really show up very much. Yeah, this is what he looks like. Yeah, if you don't know who he is, I don't blame you because this guy is a completely forgettable villain. He shows up for these two issues, but he gets placed by a heck of a lot more bigger villain. Yep. Because there is a villain who shows up in 299. Basically, it's the debut. This particular issue is the debut of one of the most popular Spider-Man characters of all time, Venom. Yep. This issue is pretty much the debut of this character. Now, excuse me. Alright, that's better. Anyways, yes. Yeah, here's 300. Now, I've seen teases that McFarlane is going to homage this very cover for Spawn 300, and this cover is also homage for an issue of Venom Volume 2 by Rick Remender. Yeah, I believe this was a homage for issue 3, I think it was. Yes, that was the thing when it comes to Venom by Rick Remender, is that the first few issues, the covers are homage to classic covers. This is one of them. And 301 is pretty much the same cover. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah. That's something interesting, though, about each of these triple-digit issues when it comes to Spider-Man. For issue 100, it was the start of the Six Arm Saga. 200 was simply put the death of the burglar, the guy who pretty much started this whole mess. 300 is the first full appearance, is basically Spider-Man versus Venom for the first time. And here's something that a lot of people tend to forget about Spider-Man's first encounter with Venom. He fought him with a black costume. Yes. That's the strange thing about this, is that when you see Venom pop in the animated series, Spider-Man is not wearing this costume. This is not the symbiote. This is a black cloth costume. He's actually worn this. He actually put this costume back on after events of Civil War 1. He put it back on briefly, yeah, during the whole Back in Black stuff. That was the first time since this very storyline he's actually put on the black costume. Yes. Now, This is basically a storyline that I've been building up for about a couple years at this point. And this all started with somebody, this is of course later identified in this issue to be Eddie Brock himself. He was the one who pushed Peter Parker off a train platform and nearly got run over by a freaking subway train. Yes, Eddie Brock is that much of a murderer because he hates Peter Parker for pretty much ruining his reporting career. And so with 301, now here's the thing about Spider-Man wearing the black cloth costume. He had worn that at this point in time for about a few years. Yeah, there's a reason why he was wearing it, because he had been wearing it since Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 100. So he'd been wearing it for about 3 years when he finally stopped wearing it. Yep. So, and then we have a storyline with Silver Sable. Yeah, there's also stuff with Mary Jane and stuff like that. Which, there's a minor subplot involving her and their former landlord who, get this, he pretty much kidnapped Mary Jane just so he can marry her. Yeah, despite the fact she's already married to a different guy. Yep. Yeah, it starts up 301 and 302, just something to do with Spider-Man basically doing average things. Of course, we have more artwork by the awesome McFarlane. Have a rematch with Chance. I think Six and Stone show up in here too. Yeah, then we have the Sandman working for Silver Sable. Yeah, there's a reason for this. In the 80s, writers thought it'd be a good idea to have Sam and Reform become a superhero. Heck, this guy was even a reserve member of the Avengers. Yes. But then for some strange reason, I have no idea why in the world this was, Howard Mankey, the writer of Spider-Man in 1999, decided to have him go back to be a villain. No explained reason, despite the fact he'd been here at that point for about 15 years. Yes, throughout pretty much the second half of the 80s and almost the entirety of the 90s, whenever he showed up, he was always portrayed as a superhero. As for why he turned back to be a villain, no idea. Of course, I love the little joke basically about this issue here. It's issue 303. They call this issue Doc Savage. Yeah, it's a nod to the pulp hero Doc Savage. But to put the D there, the K there, just so that they're not having... Well, my personal guess is the reason why that this book was not sued by, let's say, I think DC? I think it was DC or Millennium. I think it was DC. Yeah, they're the ones who had the license to publish Doc Savage comics at this point. My guess is the reason why the Marvel's like, well, it's because even though it's the same lettering and it's pretty much the same character, well, name after that character. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole gist of that. Yeah, of course we have more stuff with Silver Sable. Yeah, a lot of this stuff basically do with Silver Sable. This issue is pretty much like, if anybody is a fan of New Warriors and any fans of Diego, let me introduce you to Speedball. Yes, this character, who is a creation of the now late Steve Ditko. This is his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man and number 22, which is part of the Evolutionary War storyline. Yes. Those of you curious though about the Evolutionary War stuff, yeah, back in the late 80s, Marvel did this thing where a lot of their annuals were part of storylines. Evolutionary War was simply just a high evolutionary doing just basically trying to do scientific stuff for a lot of characters. Speedball, after this very annual came out, he got a short-lived ongoing series that was canceled after only 10 issues published. And it was basically drawn, the entire series, by Steve Ditko. I believe he also wrote it as well. And this is one of his last major characters. Not the last major character he created for comic books. That goes to Squirrel Girl. But yes, this character is a creation of Steve Ditko. Yes, not a very known creation of Steve Ditko. People know who Speedball is because of his time with New Warriors. But people forget the fact he's a Steve Ditko character, because we would think of Marvel characters created with Steve Ditko. What's usually the first two characters who pop people's head? Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. Yep. Yeah, the whole point of this one is just simply his origin story of how he got his power. That's simply one of several stories in here. Now, the first story is done in this book by Tom DeFalco. and Dave Michelini. Yep, they're the ones who do the artwork in here, who do the writing with, get this, this is Mark Bagley's early artwork. Yes, Mark Bagley. The same guy who would later become one of the longest recurring artists on a comic book. Yeah, he basically drew the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book for 113 issues with Brian Michael Bendis, breaking the all-time record for Marvel for the longest creative run on a comic book, which was set by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby back in the 60s. Nobody ever broke this record until this guy, to Mark Bagley and Brian Michael Bendis, broke it in the mid-2000s when they did issue 113 for Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah, the first one is basically Spider-Man teaming up with Daredevil to fight the Kingpin to deal with some whatever stuff they're dealing with him. Yeah, but it's an interesting little standalone story. We also have Speedball shows up here. Yeah, it's a pretty good annual. Now this one's here done by, it's all Steve Ditko's artwork. Yep, this is kind of like an early story. This is basically all Steve Ditko's artwork. Yeah, and this is just a Speedball story. Yeah, it's the first solo story for him because he debuted in a Spider-Man story. Of course, this is nothing unusual for an annual. We also have, like, yeah, this is something you find old annuals. And I'm glad the fact Marvel does put these in here. Yeah, our annuals used to have these little blueprints of where people live. Like, this is simply put where Peter and Mary Jane live. Basically, it's their home. Yep. The other story here, which is done by, doesn't say who done this one. Yeah, this is a High Evolutionary story. Yeah, it's part 6. This is done by the late Mark Greenwald. Yep, he's the one who wrote this story. And Rob Lim did the artwork. A couple unused covers when Spider-Man was using a black costume. And then you have this weird art style. I don't think... Yeah, McFarlane did draw this. Yep. Yeah, just various stuff that Spider-Man gets involved with. Also get a chance to fight this character here. The Silver Fox. Along with the Prowler showing up. Yes. Yeah, those who know who this character is... I mean, people do kind of know about him, especially since he showed up recently in Spider-Man comics. This is Hobby Brown. Yes, the original Prowler. And he also showed up in the worst episode of the entire Spider-Man animated series in the 90s. Yeah, it's pretty bad. They gave him suit powers for some strange reason. They had the Kingpin broke him out for, I don't know why. He's the creation of the late Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. And from an article I read, apparently the whole idea of creating this character came from John Romita Jr. Yes, he's the one who came with the idea for this particular character. But it was his father and Stan Lee who created this character back in the 60s. Actually, it was the 70s, I think it was. Yeah, it was 70s. Yeah, during a period of time when racism was high. Oh, yeah. And he was, basically, before he became the Prowler, he was a window washer. Yes, because racism. And despite the fact he's actually a genius when it comes to inventing stuff, his boss refused to take him seriously. You want to know why? Because he's black. That's the only reason why. Because he's black. Yep. Yeah, and also, if you notice basically while reading this, you're probably thinking, okay, late September is like, oh no, we're doing the whole thing of... And people think that the whole thing of Marvel publishing 2 issues a month is a recent phenomenon. No, this is basically stretched far back as the 80s. DC's done this too. So it's not a recent thing. Yeah, this is an old thing that Marvel did. And of course, we have... Spider-Man's homage to Action Comics #1. Instead of having a green car, it's a police car. Because why not? Yep. Of course, him catching various bad guys. Have accounted with the beautiful Black Cat. Yeah, I kind of like her original costume a little better. This one's fine, but yeah. Not exactly my favorite look when it comes to the Black Cat. And also, the way Tom McFarlane draws Aunt May, it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, he knew this woman is old, but did he have to draw her? I mean, this woman is implied to be in her 60s or 70s, possibly. Why the heck does he draw her like she's in her 90s? Yes, that was something McFarlane did with Aunt May. I have no idea why. She's always depicted as an old lady. That's the thing with Aunt May. She's always depicted as that, but not this old. No. Oh yeah, and here's the guy who has an obsession. This is, I think his name is Jonathan Caesar. Yeah, this guy here, this is the guy who has an obsession with Mary Jane Watson. Because she's hot, and he wants to make her his. Oh yeah, and then we have an encounter with the Chameleon. Yep, awesome. Yeah, and here's the thing about when he shows up in here. Where's that page here? Yeah, there's a page in here where he talks about his first few appearances he made. Yeah, his appearance from Amazing Experiment number 1, 80, and 86. Basically, first handful appearances. Yeah, at one point the Chameleon looked like this goofy costume. Yeah, but he's always wearing this white mask over his face. There's kind of never an explained reason why he wears that. But when he took off this white face of his, it's kind of explained he's not a very good looking person with that mask. Yeah, this is basically shown to him by freaking Kraven the Hunter. Yes, as for what the reason is for him to wear this white mask has never been explained. In the anime series 90s, the Chameleon was made some master spy who just basically betrayed people on a whim. And apparently he was an adopted son of the Red Skull in that series for some strange reason. I don't know why. Yeah, he also had this strange belt buckle. Yes. Those of you curious, though, the whole thing with the belt buckle where he just touched and transformed on people. Yeah, that's a comic creation. That may be in the comics before the show. Yep. Yeah. And of course, then we have the whole kidnapping subplot, which continues next tree as well, which actually wraps up here. Yeah, the whole thing with Jonathan Caesar. He's a terrible person. Yep. We also have an encounter with Killer Strike. Not the first time Spider-Man's fought this guy, but it's always great when this guy shows up. He's not that well known of a character. Apparently, get this, currently the original, this is the first one, by the way, he's actually retired. Yeah, he sold his costume to somebody else. Basically, some other guy bought the costume. He's the current Killer Strike now. Yeah. For the issues that came out between 1987 and 1980, these are really good. This book, a 9.5 out of 10. Next comes the Assassination Nation one. This one is actually only containing, so this one goes on 311, 325, Animal 23, and Marvel graphic novel Amazing Spider-Man Parallel Lives. Yep. This one basically Spider-Man counts as major classic ones like the Green Goblin. This may also deal with Inferno in here as well. Yeah, the first couple issues are tie-ins to Inferno. Yeah, that was a crossover published back in 1980s. You wonder what the heck that story is? It's simply put, Madeline Pryor sends Manhattan to hell. Well, basically limbo. When demons show over the place, and also New York is freaking hot. Yes, people are sweating like crazy. And people think they're in the desert when they're in limbo. Yeah, this basically affected a lot of the Marvel Universe. But the thing is, unlike other crossovers, this one was mainly dealt with the X books, and for some reason, it spread out to the Marvel Universe. I've never heard of the explained reason why this happened. Yes. As for the whole Assassination Nation thing, this is simply put a storyline which ended Tom McFarlane's run of the book. Also, in case you're wondering, the second last issue of the storyline, 324, that's actually not that Mike McFarlane. He just has the cover. He doesn't do the interior issue. 325 is technically the last issue he did for the series. It's a storyline where Spider-Man goes to Silver Sable's country to stop an assassination, though they do. And apparently the Prime Minister and his son's fiance were killed. The Prime Minister was killed by Sabretooth of all people. Yes, Sabretooth, an X-Men villain. That's Marvel Universe for you. Captain America gets involved in this thing. Doesn't do very much. Also, a general denies Spider-Man clearance because he wanted to take off his mask and show his fingerprints. He has a secret identity. Though Daredevil made a case this recently, thanks to the course of Charles Show, that superheroes who are identity secrets do not have to reveal their identity in public. They're not required to. And their testimony is completely justified thanks to a case that he did. There's a Paladin show up in here. Like a lot of Spider-Man villains, And pretty much all the issues in here are done by David Michelini. Jerry Conway does I believe he does the annual in here, along with the Freak Comic Day, the Marvel graphic novel. The other writers in here are Tom DeFalco, Fred Hemrick, and Patrick Sorensen. The artwork in here is done by Rob Liefeld, Tom McFarlane, Eric Larson, Alex Savant, with Mark Bagley, Ron Fritz, Richard Rockwell, and Fred Hemrick. Now, those people are thinking those first three names: Tom McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson. Why is that? Why do those three names sound so familiar? Yes, the three of the eight artists who in 1992 broke off Marvel Comics to form Image. Yes, of these three, two of them are still partners at Image. Rob Liefeld is no longer a partner at Image. He occasionally does work for them, but he does nothing with them anymore. I think the most recent book he did I can think of for Marvel is he did Major X. For Rob Liefeld, he did this, I think it was like a Deadpool ripoff series for them. Well, it released about 2 issues. Yeah. Get this. 524 is done by Eric Larson, who is the same guy who gave Venom his infamous tongue that he's known for sticking out to spit out that green saliva stuff he spits out. Yeah. The stories in here are really good, and I'm going to give this book also a 9.5 out of 10. Yep. So that's it for this particular review. Next Comic Corner, 2 X-Men trades. One from recently, the other one published issues probably back in the mid-1990s. Okay? But till you see the next review. Bye.